Hello everyone and welcome to another speed build in The Sims 2 where I am renovating the City Centre Lofts that come in the lot bin. I believe the lot came with Apartment Life, well it must have because it's an apartment building. But I'm renovating it for Strangetown, in particular downtown, because I need a hostel. And because in kind of this playthrough that I'm doing with both Strangetown and Pleasant View, rather than kind of creating my own unique builds, I'm playing around with the Maxis builds and seeing what I can do with them in terms of renovations and all that stuff. So yeah, basically I need some low cost living for Sims who, finish college or move out of home and don't have much money. And I like to have hostels in my neighborhoods. So I thought this building here would be perfect to convert to a hostel. And yeah, so pretty much what I'm doing now is shrinking the lot because it was set up to be an apartment building and a hostel only needs, pretty small rooms. So I did have to shrink it down quite a bit. So you can see on the left hand side of the building, it shrinks down quite significantly. Now, the floor plan becomes its own unique thing. With the before and after pictures, I haven't bothered taking any really befores of the interior of the building. I've taken one before of the exterior because, of course, that changes quite a bit, but the interior ends up changing a lot. So I didn't bother with any sort of before pictures of the interior because, yeah, the entire purpose of the building pretty much changes. So don't even bother with that. But you will see some, some screenshots of how it looks inside afterwards. So yeah. Um, so I'm pretty much working on the floor plan here, and the idea is that all the communal spaces, so the bathroom, the kitchen, and dining area, and kind of communal space, is on the first floor, and the second floor is where all the rooms are, the apartments, and the ground floor is going to be a little like converted garage. So it's got a garage door to it, but uh, because it's not functional and I wanted to do something with the space, I made it into like a little party room kind of thing. So we'll see that a little bit later on. But at the moment, yeah, I'm basically just rearranging the floor plan, getting rid of the stairs on the side, and because there's two ways to go up and down the building now. So there's lifts and there are stairs. So I didn't really see the point in having stairs on the exterior because it would also prove quite difficult having a stairway off an apartment because that's not really possible. Without kind of breaking the apartment because you can only have one way in and out of an apartment. So the stairwell on the side had to go. So doing the exterior here and choosing a grungy texture. So I use a lot of grunge for this build, and unfortunately, well, it's not really unfortunately. I mean, yeah, I thought it was quite fun, really. But I kind of built the lot and furnished it, and then I went on a CC hunt for more grungy stuff that I could put in the build. Unfortunately, I did that after I recorded the footage of the complete renovation. But in the screenshots, you'll see some additions to, not necessarily additions, but like recolors. Some things have been switched out and added as a result of me going custom content shopping after I'd done the build. So yeah. So finished with the exterior now. Much like the goth house, I actually at this point in time I kind of was okay with the exterior. I was like, okay, exterior is done. I'm happy with the texture that I've chosen for the walls, the exterior walls and stuff. So I'll start moving on to the interior and all that stuff now. But then towards the end of the build, when I was kind of like, okay, well, I've done the interior, and then I started looking at the exterior, and I was like, it actually needs to change. And then I spent a whole heap of time trying to figure out how I wanted the exterior of the build to look because it still looked really kind of Maxis, and so I wanted it to look a little more unique and a lot more grunge. So, yeah, you'll see that the exterior does change quite a bit from how it looks now. So right now I'm working on the walls for the communal spaces in the kitchen, and I've got a whole heap of kind of grungy wallpapers and textures that just make it look nice and dirty and run down. For my kind of grungy builds, I do like to use a lot of mismatched stuff, and I feel like the Maxis, um, you know, floors especially, sometimes walls. I mean, the walls are quite clean looking, but the carpets look really good in grunge build because they're quite low quality in terms of textures and stuff, and so they look a little bit cheap and nasty. So I like to use those in my grungy builds. Putting in some grungy toilets in the bathroom and some grungy showers and some counters there and some sinks, and then putting in some mirrors. Grunge is one of my favorite styles to build in, actually, and I only recently discovered that. I did do a grunge build in my last Pleasant View playthrough, kind of towards the end of me playing that save. I created a hostel that was really grunge, and I went and did a whole heap of or some shopping for some custom content for that build. And I found a whole heap of kind of cool grungy stuff, but I felt like this hostel here is much bigger than the last one that I built, so I needed a bit more grunge, and so yeah, as a result, I ended up doing more custom content shopping. One thing that I really like is these sprinklers, the sprinkler system that I place throughout the building. And that is from the 3:2 hipster loft set, I believe. It's a store set from The Sims 3, and it has a conversion to The Sims 2. And I'm pretty sure Veranka did it, and it comes with these really cool sprinklers that contribute to the dinginess of this build. And just working on the entryway there, and now onto the kitchen. And of course, using the broken kitchen set for the cooking space. Of course, there's a Shiny Time stove so that there will be an NPC that comes and serves meals for the Sims, because these rooms are dead cheap. They're quite sizable, actually. They're some of the bigger rooms that I've had in some of the more bigger rooms that I've had in a hostel before. And I think their price is about 300 simoleons per week, which I think is, kind of reasonable. I don't like the rooms to be too small, because then if Sims have, some furniture to take with them, I want, at least a decent amount of space for them to have, a bed, a dresser, a computer, and all that kind of essential space that is not, this doesn't include like a bathroom or kitchen or whatever. So one of the rooms actually does have its own private bathroom, and that's about as luxurious as it gets. But all the other rooms are pretty much just beds. So continuing with the kitchen here, and yeah, just placing down all the broken items, and now getting out some dining tables that are going to have some mismatched chairs. Now, a bit later on, I do recolor and replace some of these chairs because they were looking a little too uniform and clean for me, so I did switch them up a little bit later, and you'll see that in the screenshots. But it's coming together now, and getting in some light switches, and then I start getting out, or in a moment, I start getting out some clutter and just putting that all about the place. So I do some initial cluttering here, and then after I did a big CC shop, I found some other really cool grungy clutter, so I end up putting that in as well, and you'll see some of that in the screenshots. So just adding some more detail to the room here, some wall decor, some posters, some blinds on those windows, and some clutter for the dining table. So we've got a mustard bottle and a ketchup bottle as well. Now moving into the common area, and of course putting in my cute dinky little Sims 1 TV. It's perfect for these kind of builds, and then adding in some mismatched furniture, giving them a dirty looking piano, recoloring that with some nice grungy recolors from Pineapple Forest, and putting in a bookshelf, and then I put in like a random kind of, not sure what that surface is called, but it's almost like a oh, I can't remember the name of it anyway, but I quite like the look of that. So it's there for now, and I can't remember what I do with it exactly. So we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, putting up some posters, and then moving on to some Scody looking curtains. And you would have seen some pink flashing there for a second. Now, those curtains, for whatever reason, whenever I hover the recolor button over them, the recolor cursor over them, they flash pink. And they did that in the previous build as well, and I thought I was having pink flashing, but it was only those curtains, and they've done it again in this build, so I assume it's a problem with the curtains and not my game, at least I hope so. I haven't run into any pink flashing issues yet, so fingers and toes crossed. Now adding in some more sprinklers, moving the lights out of the way so that, you know, the sprinklers don't overlap. And yeah, I really like this build in the end. I mean, like I said, I love, you know, I've really enjoyed doing grungy builds, and they're actually quite fun to play in. So I had a bit of a blast renovating this lot. So here's the room with the bathroom that has its own private bathroom, and it's of course not the most luxurious bathroom. The colors are very whack, but I do like to do that. I like to do whack mismatched colors with grunge builds. I just feel like they make it look, you know, quite tacky, and yeah, just give it a more kind of, I don't know, like not cozy, but just, I like them, and I don't know, I just feel like they have a lot of character when, you know, things are mismatched and just look like they've had, you know, been through a lot and they've got a story to tell and that kind of thing. So they're really fun to put together and really fun to play in. Getting in some light switches and moving on to some furniture for the landing here, or the corridor. And now putting in some curtains as well. So going with the Maxxis curtains with Maxxis swatches. Much like the Maxxis carpet, I feel like the Maxxis swatches for the curtains go really well with grunge builds. So it was a pleasure putting these in and putting them to good use. Putting in these pipes down the sides of the walls to add to that extra kind of dirty industrial. It's almost like industrial vibes as well. I feel like that kind of adds to the character and the charm of the build. Just doing a little bit of rearranging so things don't overlap with the sprinklers. And then adding in some trash. There's a lot of trash around the place in this build, so yeah, it's I don't know, it was just fun placing all this trash, what can I say. I found these cute little suitcases as well and recolored those, adding some random cones in the landing there, and then just placing a car. Of course the Sims can't use that car, but I had to put a sloppy jalopy somewhere to bring the grunge theme full circle. Now I'm working on the garage kind of party area. So adding a bar and a stereo and, you know, some cool lights, some bottles of beer. I thought about putting a bubble blower in there as well, but, you know, I thought that was a little too luxurious for that build, so I quickly got rid of that. And yeah, here's where I'm adding some cute little lights. And yeah, I feel like this would be a cool place for Sims to come and, you know, invite their friends if they wanted to have a party or like a building party. Yeah, it ends up being, like, it's quite bare, but, you know, I feel like for music, drinks, and dancing, it's all you really need. Of course, adding some more trash around the place. And then, what am I doing? Oh, of course, the utility box. Now adding some deco for the walls, some street signs, and that's pretty much that room done. Just got to add a few more light switches around the place, can't forget those. Very, very important. And now moving on to the rooftop. So I can say that this part of the build changes quite a bit compared to what you see here. It's in terms of the objects that I place around, that doesn't change, but the layout of the rooftop does change quite a bit. But I just wanted to kind of have the rooftop still functional and a purpose to go up there, so I put the telescope up there. But compared to the Maxis build, the functionality is actually quite different. I'm pretty sure there was like a barbecue and a bar up there initially, but it's just the telescope up there now. Adding in some vents, some cooling and heating vents in the rooms, and then moving on to some landscaping, so placing down the road overlays that I use, some lights here, and just doing some landscaping and bits and pieces of clutter, so some kind of, this little weird unkept garden, and some more terrain paint, and then adding in a whole heap of trash cans. Like I said, there was a lot of trash in this build, and as you can see here, there's a big trash pile up right by the door. Actually, to be honest, I just put all that trash there because I had that kind of covered area and I had no idea what to put there. So I just, thought, why not more trash? It makes sense. And I put a basketball hoop on this side and an old couch, some crates. Love me some crates. And just putting in some finishing touches to the interior. Some more lights and all that kind of stuff. And now putting some walls around the lot. And then just playing around with the columns so they actually made sense and the building looked like it was actually had, enough support on the ground floor there. Adding in a dumpster. Of course, there's some more trash around that. And this is kind of where I got to the point of reviewing the exterior of the building. So you can see here it looks really Maxis. So you can see there's different stages of things that I tried. So I tried to once again have a mansard roof. I'm loving mansard roofs at the moment, and I tried with this build to do like a mansard with like a courtyard area where the telescope would be, but the roof wasn't really behaving with me, so I thought I'd try something different. So you can see there the hipped roof and the I can't remember what the other roof is called. They just weren't cooperating. So then I went with the stage tool and had that surround the rooftop to kind of enclose it and create almost like a fence or a rail to border the rooftop there. And when I did that, I noticed that the build was starting to kind of give me brutalist vibes. And brutalist architecture is really, really interesting, and I quite like it. I haven't really done many brutalist builds, if any. Until actually my last hostel build was quite brutalist. I think I might have discussed that on the stream when I built it. It kind of unintentionally went down a brutalist route. So I noticed that it was kind of coming together. The brutalist style was kind of coming together with this build on its own. So I thought I'd kind of go with it. And yeah, so I started to kind of add on a few more features to make the build look more interesting and less kind of Maxis, and go with a more brutalist style. So adding on these bump outs, adding on, some exposed concrete columns everywhere, and then adding some more cover onto the rooftop. So really bringing out the kind of the bump out on the top here, making sure it has adequate support with all the cement columns, and really just extending out the cover part for the rooftop. I thought about having a covered entryway, but that didn't really look very good, so I played around more with some brutalist style architecture and pushed it back a little bit so there was some overhang. And that seems to be a feature of brutalist style architecture. So after that, I went and recolored the windows. I felt like the black was a little too much, and yeah, just making sure the exterior looks as pretty as it can in a grunge context. So yeah, just rearranging all the rooftop items here because I played around with the roof quite a bit and the columns there. And then just adding some additional detail by adding a concrete panel wall texture to the middle part of the build and the bump outs there. I just think that makes the build look a little more interesting. I did try with a different trim, but in the end I felt like the original one that I stuck with looked the best. Now moving on to some screenshots here, and you may notice a few bits and pieces of extra clutter and recolors here and there. This build was a real pleasure to put together and I'm happy to show it to you. And yeah, I'm actually really terrible with outros. I have no idea what to say half the time, but I'll leave you to look over these screenshots. I will say thanks so much for watching and I will see you in another video very soon. Take care and goodbye.